Welcome back, grade 11s. We're going to be moving on to a new section of work, the marketing function. Now, the marketing function is an exciting section of work. I really enjoy teaching it because it involves a great deal of creativity. So we're going to go through a couple of pointers with you. All right, so when we look at marketing, often there's a misconception. Many people just refer to marketing as advertising and marketing being the same thing. All right, but that's not the case, okay? Marketing includes a great deal more points. All right, so let's have a look at the definition of marketing that we have for you. Marketing refers to activities a company undertakes to promote the buying or selling of a product or service. Now that means that it includes a great deal more than just the advertising. So let's have a look at advertising. Well, marketing includes advertising, selling, and delivering products to consumers or other businesses. All right, so it includes everything that takes place from the production of the product to the actual delivery to the customer. All right, the role of marketing plays an important role in establishing relationships between customers and the organization offering to the market. All right, so it's all about creating that relationship, communicating with those customers, and ensuring those customers stay. Okay, so we're going to be looking at different activities that fall under the topic of marketing, and as you'll see, it includes a great deal of information. All right, it's not just the advertising aspect. All right, first and foremost, you want to locate your customer. So there's different mechanisms that you can use in order to do that. All right, so firstly, you can observe the market. For example, sometimes you might see people on the side of the road that are looking at the cars driving past. What they're doing is actually they are assessing or they're checking whether a car is a particular color, or they might be looking at the different types of vehicles, an SUV, a sedan, or whatever the case may be. And using this information, they're going to make decisions within their marketing team. All right. The next way is to have a questionnaire, which will be used to consult and ask potential customers what they would prefer. So that's often referred to as market research. All right. The internet is an incredibly useful tool. There's a great deal of information that can be found on the internet that's referring to specific issues or specific products that you might be considering selling. And then lastly, interviewing people. You would use that questionnaire in this interviewing process. So that's locating the customer. We're going to move on to standardization. And this is a question that often comes up, is the difference between standardization and grading. All right, the next slide will be grading, but let's have a look at standardization quickly. Right, standardization is the products that are sold under the same label for the same price should be uniform in size, shape, and standard. Very important. I mean, there you can see an example of a pencil. All right. Your customers expect the pencil to be the same size, the same length. They're expecting that to be consistent. And that's exactly what standardization is. If you go to a McDonald's in Cape Town, you expect the exact same Happy Meal that you would get in a place like Johannesburg, okay? Because they have put in place standardization protocols or processes that are very important to remember. All right, then we move on to grading. And grading, as you can see, the image is referring to apples. Often it's referred to when talking about fruits, vegetables, meat, cheese, all of those sorts of things. And it's about looking at the quality of the product. So products are normally graded according to the quality of the product. So you'll often find in South Africa's context, a lot of the high quality products, so your A-grade products are the ones that are being sent overseas, for example, because they can get a pretty penny for them. All right, then we move on to storage. Also, very important to consider, depending on what you're storing, for the period of time that you're storing, the size of the product that you're storing as well. So it refers to the storage of product from the time it is finished to the time it is sold to the customer. And these days, storage is done in different ways and for different reasons, because we are selling products to your customer in different ways. We're distributing it to your customers in different ways. So you might look at a company like Takealot, will have a great deal different, or they'll have a different process of storage than, for example, a Checkers or a Pick n Pay, because Takealot is predominantly an online-based business and those products are distributed via courier service. All right, so it's very different these days to your typical high street type business. All right, we move on to transport, and as well as storage, transport also is determined on specific protocols or specific details. So time. Okay, you can imagine time, you've got different forms of transport, but if you want something to be distributed or delivered in a quick manner, okay, you want it to get to your destination quickly, then that would be maybe airplane, might be an option. But then you need to consider price or cost. Right, the conditions, what sort of conditions that the product needs to be under. So recently they're referring to the vaccination, the COVID-19 vaccination. You may know that they are required to be under certain conditions, specific temperatures. Okay, so that would involve, or that would look at the transport that's required and also the storage that's required for those products. Okay, I mentioned price. You could look at different mechanisms or different forms of transport that are cheaper options. Okay, you often find that road and railway or shipping might be slightly cheaper than delivering via an airplane or by air. All right, the size. Okay, also if you are delivering or transporting a large product, okay, an airplane might not be the most appropriate. You might need to look at a shipping option, which again you would need to consider the time aspect. Is the form of transport available? Okay, if you're living inland, then obviously transport by sea will not be available. All right, and then lastly, the weight. Okay, this would be a consideration. If it's a really heavy product, then you would need to consider certain forms of transport.
Yeah, we see this quite often on the national roads where trucks have to actually turn over and get weighed.
Yes.
To see what the load is, because if they're too heavy, they actually cause damage to the roads.
Yeah.
And I see, and probably we have lots of potholes in South Africa. It's probably caused by vehicles that are too heavy, heavily overloaded, that are driving on roads they're not supposed to be loading on. So it's quite important, that weight aspect, to make sure that you are not damaging the infrastructure that's there already, because there isn't a lot of money to fix it. So when there's potholes, we know it takes a long time. From the time it takes to report it to getting someone out to fix it, it takes a very long time. So we have to consider these things to look after our infrastructure as well.
Yeah, and often that's probably why you would see that trucks cost more when you get to a toll gate as opposed to a motorcycle or a car. And also when you're driving along the road, you often find in the yellow lane, you might see a number of potholes there, because that's often where the truck drivers are driving. Okay, so these sorts of things need to be considered as well. All right. Looking at financing, when you're looking at marketing, financing is a very important aspect, because how are you going to pay for the marketing that you are putting in place? So there's different mechanisms that we look at. Firstly, credit facilities. Maybe a banking institution will be willing to offer you credit. There might be a requirement for a deposit as well when you are taking out credit. And then lastly, we've got a lease agreement. And a lease agreement you might discuss a little bit further later on in the year, but a lease agreement, often you might refer to it with regards to rental agreements. Okay, you never own the product, but you're paying it off over you're paying on a monthly basis, and you might have an annual contract, and that's often referred to as a lease agreement. All right, and then we move on to risk. Okay, risk is an important aspect with regards to marketing, because you've got to look at what sort of unforeseen circumstances could you come across, all right? And COVID-19, again, is a perfect example of that, because it's an unforeseen circumstance. We did not predict that COVID-19 would take place, or the subsequent lockdowns that took place, and businesses needed to react, and their marketing team needed to react as well.
And you can see there again when there was the announcement on Sunday evening, that's taking this risk factor into place. So
Definitely.
measurements have been put in place because they foresee risks in the future.
Yeah.
So that's also, so that speech by the president is also an example of how risk is involved. It may not be marketing,
Sure.
but it is risk for the country. So it falls into that risk as well.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's one of those macro environment issues that we don't necessarily have control over. If you refer back to, I think it was term one work, okay, when we referred to the macro market and micro, the lockdown and Cyril Ramaphosa's speech, all the legal aspects that were put in place, the rules and regulations, that was all macro environment. We don't have control over that, but we do need to adapt, and the marketing team also needs to do exactly the same. The last one that we will look at is buying and selling. How does the sale take place? Okay, so the first one that I referred to there is online services. Okay, the online retail business has grown dramatically over the last year and a half, purely because of lockdown and the inability to actually go to shops, or the choice that people had when they could buy things online. You look at the success of Checkers 60/60, which is allowing groceries to be bought online. Often groceries were not an option online. Now it is. Okay. Third-party sales. So if you are getting someone else, an intermediary, to make the sale for you, that is the third party. And then lastly, personal selling. So this is if you are going to your customer one-on-one and making the sale via that mechanism. All right, we're going to look at the product policy. So we refer to the marketing mix, right? The marketing mix includes product, place, promotion, and, if I recall, people. All right. Yeah. So we are going to be looking at the product policy first. Okay. So here we've got a diagram which refers to the types of products. I know there's a lot of information there, but you'll see in your core content that this is actually a nice description of the types of products. So you'll see at the top there, you've got your non-durable and durable. Okay, then you've got your consumer and industrial options along the bottom there. Okay, your non-durable and durable, you've got things like
salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper, and your durable is your bigger options like your TV and fridge, freezers, and that sort of thing. All right, and then you've got your consumer options there. You've got the convenience. You've got shopping and speciality. Your convenience would be more your newspaper types of products. Then you've got clothing as your shopping products. Then speciality, vehicles. This is all different products that you might take different periods of time to make your decision. Right, so convenience, you're not going to take very long to make the decision on purchasing that product. And then shopping, you might take a little bit longer to decide what type of clothing that you choose and where you decide to buy it. Whereas speciality, most certainly a vehicle, you're going to take a great deal longer to decide on what vehicle you're going to purchase and what sort of information that you are wanting to gather before making that decision.
It's also interesting here to see how shops use this to lay their stores out.
Yes.
So if you see the convenience goods, they'll always be at the cash point where you're going to pay, because you don't go into the shop for those things.
Yeah.
But while you're waiting in the queue, there's going to be things that you're looking at and be like, oh, I'll take this, I'll take that, and so on. And you'll also see that they quite cleverly never have all the caches full, because they need to have some sort of queue to make sure people are looking at those convenience goods and grabbing out of impulse.
Yes, yeah.
And if you look at the shopping goods, those are things will be further on in the store, and your specialty goods will be right at the back, because you know if you're going for a specialty good, you're going to walk past everything, so you're going to see what's going on in the shop, and you might actually grab a few extra things. So shops, business actually use this as a way to lay their stores out, to get you to buy more things that you didn't go in for. That's why we always say, like, I went in for this, I bought this, I didn't even go get the thing that I was going in for. And then you go back again. It's a little trap that you get caught in.
Yeah, all the psychology of shopping. There's all sorts of different tricks of the trade that shops implement to ensure that they make the sale. The one that always comes to mind is also the different shelving, how they shelf things. So they'll have your standard products up at the top there, and then often at knee level, where often it's the kids that go there. They'll have the sweets and the chocolates and all of that. So the kids want to purchase those as well, or they ask their mommy, daddy to buy those. So there's different mechanisms which businesses use to ensure that they make the sale. Right, we move on to industrial products. Okay, industrial products we refer to farm, natural, or manufactured products. Okay, farming, things like your vegetables, and then natural products, things like timber, and then manufactured products, the example that's used there, crude oil. Okay, things that are going to be used in the manufacturing process. All right, and then lastly, you've got the supplies on the right-hand side, which is divided into operating and maintenance type products. All right, so that's a nice image to summarize the different types of products. So I'd encourage you to just go through that and have a look at different types of products. Maybe you can come up with some other examples which you can include in that section of work over there. All right. This is often a question that comes up in the other section B type questions or in an essay question, product development or design. All right, so when we look at different processes in business studies, there's often a step-by-step process which has been included there. And this is a nice one that businesses use in order to develop new products. Okay, first and foremost, we look at idea generation. So businesses would want to implement something called a SWOT analysis, which I referred to earlier in a different section, looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So more looking at the opportunities. What sort of opportunities do we have out there that we can take advantage of? The next one would be idea screening. Is it possible? So you look at the product itself, and is it possible to introduce that in our context, in our situation? So there's numerous examples that could be included there. Okay, concept development and testing. So here you would have decided, okay, yes, we've got the product that is, we've got an idea and it does appear to be possible, but now we need to look at the initial testing of that idea. So you might need to be going and asking, doing some market research, asking your customer, will they purchase the product? Will they use it? Is it worthwhile actually looking into the product and actually putting it into development? Okay, moving on to that business analysis, you look at the profitability. So yes, we've decided that we're going to look into this product, but is it profitable? Can we provide it to your customer at a price point which they'll be willing to buy? All right, market testing. Now you get to a point where you've got the product and you're asking the customer to test the product. Okay, there's numerous examples where you might have tested a product or customers have tested a product and they've decided actually, no, that product is not worthwhile going forward with. Often you come across the beta apps, depending on how you say it. Your new applications that's on your phone, you might be able to do some testing using that new app. And in that way, the business is checking whether customers actually want to use that app. And that's just an example that comes to mind. Okay, technical implementation. So now you're looking at how can we produce that product and also market that product. What do we need to put in place in order to maybe mass produce that product, in order to make it worthwhile and to produce enough products to meet that demand? All right. Then lastly, commercialization. So you're looking at the product and how it is going to be launched. How are you going to market it, promote it, and get people interested and get people talking about the product? One company that comes to mind when it's looking at commercialization, that they know exactly what they're doing, is Apple. All right, Apple, you know about the launch of a new Apple iPhone 3 or 4 months before it actually takes place. You'll have the date, and many people would tune in just to see the launch of that product. Right, the next we've got a question example that might come up. So the question that we've got here is advise businesses on the importance of product development. Take note of the action verb that's being used there, advise, all right? Advise, if you look at your exam guidelines, you will see that advise is going to have 2 marks at the end of the statement, all right? So you're not necessarily going to have your statement and qualifier, all right? You're going to have 2 ticks at the end of your statement. So let's look at the answers that are provided there. So advising businesses on the importance of product development. First and foremost, it is critical for business to develop new products or improve their current products if they want to stay in the market, if they want to stay relevant. Right, absolutely important in this competitive environment that we're finding ourselves in. The next point refers to technology, and because technology is moving and progressing so quickly, if you're wanting to stay relevant, it is important to implement that technology. So let's look at what it says there. Business must follow changing market demands and keep up to changes in technology. Okay, and a number of products come into mind, a number of companies come to mind when referring to the changes in technology, like the likes of Google, Facebook, Apple. All of them have implemented new mechanisms, and they are really at the height of the technology and the progression of technology. Right. The last one, diversify product offerings to reduce risk and remain competitive. Diversifying is very important as well, because if one product does not or is not successful, then at least you've got other products that may be able to sell. Okay, so that can be very, very useful and important to diversify. We talk about that in investments in grade 12 as well. Diversification, because you are just spreading that risk. Okay, the same thing applies to products that you will sell. Right, the next section we're going to be looking at is packaging. Okay, packaging, there you've got a number of purposes of packaging, why we've got packaging, and what different aspects we need to consider when looking at the type of packaging that we use. Okay, the first one is contain. What does the packaging contain? Is it fragile? If that's the case, we lead into the protection aspect as well, okay, because the product needs to be protected. So how does it need to be protected? Maybe you need sponge inside or bubble wrap just to ensure that it is protected. Also, what does it contain? Does it contain fluid? Then it needs to have a relevant packaging as well. What sort of information does it need to include? You'll often look at food products, and you'll see all the different information or all the different ingredients that are found in different food products. Okay, I mentioned protection. Is it fragile? Does it need to be protected? That's something that you need to keep in mind. Transportation. How is it going to be transported? Okay, does it need to be transported in refrigeration? If it is a food product, that needs to be considered. And then also, what sort of display? What do you want to display on your packaging? Okay, some products have rules and laws. If you know, for example, cigarettes, they need to have warning labels on the packaging. So that is what needs to be displayed under those circumstances. All right. Okay, here are some examples of types of products. I'm not going to spend too much time on this section. You can start to think of different types of products that you see in this type of packaging. Paperboard boxes might be appropriate for certain products. Plastic boxes, rigid boxes, maybe if it's a rigid square box, that means that it's easier to transport. Polyester or poly boxes, maybe it needs some sort of, if it's a fluid, it might require the ability to seal, and if it's got an expiration date, poly boxes might be more appropriate. And also foil sealed boxes, if there's an expiration date, it might be appropriate to have that type of packaging. Right, we move on to another topic, trademarks. Okay, so within marketing, trademarks is very, very important because it represents your brand. Okay, it might be a word, a phrase, symbol, or design combination of words, phrases, or designs that identifies and distinguishes the goods of the business from that of a competitor. If I just draw a tick, you're going to know exactly what sort of brand I am referring to. 3 stripes, you know exactly what brand of clothing I'm referring to. So it is something that is very important for businesses to set up quite early because they're wanting a brand that people are going to be accustomed to and recognize. All right, so we're going to look at the importance of trademarks to businesses and also consumers. A trademark or brand establishes an identity or reputation for a company or product. Okay, so again, a brand is associated with a particular product, and that product would then be associated with maybe a certain quality. So if you see Woolworths, for example, okay, their brand, as soon as you see Woolworths, you know that you're starting to think of maybe a far higher quality type of product. Right, so that's something to keep in mind. Your customer associates your brand with a certain quality, a price point, and also a type of product. Okay, moving on to the top right-hand corner, brand awareness is essential in marketing and advertising. So you're going to be referring to, if you've got a certain color, there's certain colors that come to mind if you're referring to Takealot, for example. Okay, certain colors that come to mind if you're talking about McDonald's. Right. Businesses spend a lot of time and effort to ensure that their trademarks and brands achieve a reputation for quality and value. So this is something that needs to be referred to continuously. So if you're receiving email marketing from a particular type of company, they will refer to their brand. So for example, if I'm getting something from Takealot, I will probably have a turquoise color or a blue color referring to the brand that they have set up. Trademarks and branding create a sense of security and consistency for those customers. So McDonald's, you're going to often see red or yellow, and that's your customer is straight away referring to maybe the standardized product or the consistency that has been created, because you know you're going to get a particular type of meal when you go to McDonald's. Right, a couple of questions that might come up when looking at trademarks. Outline, mention, or explain the requirements of a good trademark. So a trademark is specifically registered and protected by law. So in South Africa, you have to sign up with the CIPC, the Commission for the Intellectual Property Commission. Sorry, the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission. Just got them mixed up there. Companies and Intellectual Property Commission. You can go and have a look at their website. So you will be able to register your trademark, your copyright, your patent, and also you can register your business itself. So this means that the name cannot be used by any other business. So that's really important if you're wanting to ensure that your name is not used by any other business. Right, I'm going to pass you on to Mr. de Klerk, where he's going to look at the production function.
Right, so we're now looking at the last section of work for today, which is the production function. And you know there's been quite a few changes to what you need to know about the production function. So I'm going to highlight what you need to know that's in your revised ATP. Okay, so the first thing we look at is production planning. We're going to look at what production planning is, aspects to consider in production planning, and then advantages of production planning. Then we're going to look at production control, and we're going to look at what production control is, and again, aspects to consider in production control. Then production safety, where there's quite a lot of work that we're going to look at there. So it's reasons why businesses must manage safety in the workplace, requirements for a safe environment, precautionary measures a business must take when handling machinery, and the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and the ways the business can comply with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And then finally, quality control. We're going to be looking at introducing the terms quality control and total quality management, which you would have done in grade 10, and then again in grade 11, and again further in grade 12. So this concept runs all the way through to grade 12. Okay, so production planning quite simply means setting of goals in terms of what will be produced and how it will be achieved. So the first aspect that forms part of production planning is planning, and this involves planning each aspect of the overall process. It also includes the layout of the factory. It includes the flow of materials through the process, also through the process as well. It includes planning in terms of budgets, machinery, manpower, and also expected output from that planning. So there's a lot that is involved in planning. So planning basically involves looking at all aspects of the production, from when you're getting the materials, not from when you're getting the materials, from who you're getting materials from, how you're going to use it, when you're going to sell it, what's the output going to be, and so on. Okay, the next aspect that forms part of production planning is routing. And routing basically means finding the best and cheapest way to sequence the production process. So you've got to look at all the activities that you have to do, and you have to find the best combination. So these include things like the layout of the factory. How are you going to organize your factory to make sure that the machineries are used in a process where the product can flow from one place to the other and not actually cause an interruption in the process? You don't want people running around from one machine to another machine. So you're going to plan how to best use all the machinery, all the people, and how you're going to sequence them to make sure that there's one continuous flow of production happening in your factory, to make sure that you can get the biggest output as you possibly can. Okay, the next one is scheduling, and scheduling involves scheduling with regards to the process and the timing it takes to actually produce the products. It involves prioritizing certain jobs, so some jobs become more important than others and therefore have to be completed before other jobs have even started. It includes the time period that needs to be involved in the production process. How are we going to prepare the material? How are we going to deliver the raw material? The time it takes to process raw materials into finished products, as well as the time it takes to deliver the products to the end user. So that all forms part of the scheduling process. And then finally, we have the loading process. And for those of you that have done a little bit of work on human resources, loading is related to that, to one of the aspects of human resources, which is regarding to placement. But it's not just about the people that you are placing, it's also about the machinery that's used in the workplace. So loading refers to allocating every person or machine in the workplace to their specific task, to make sure that each person is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and every machine is doing what it's supposed to be doing, so that you have all people and all machines running at maximum output, so that you can get as much products being produced as possible. Because we also know that we have the law of marginal returns, or where the more you produce, the cheaper it becomes to produce. So if we can make sure that our production planning process runs smoothly, we can produce more units with the same input in a shorter amount of time. And that reduces costs for the business. And this cost reduction increases profits automatically. Also, in a world like we're living in now with COVID and so on, we can also use it as a way to decrease the prices that we charge to the customer without actually minimizing the profits. Okay, so those are the aspects that form part of production planning. The advantages of production planning is that efficient production planning allows businesses to meet its demands and prevents problems that could cause unnecessary expenses and wastage in the business. By setting standards, planning shows what level of quality must be met, and allows this to be monitored as well. So you can monitor the level of quality of the products as well. Proper planning also allows resources to be used efficiently and profits to be maximized. So that's what I've mentioned about getting as much output with the same amount of input as possible. We then move over to production control. And when we talk about production control, we're saying making sure that actual production performances meets the goals that were set out in the production plan. Okay, so now we're going to link the actual production with what we planned is going to happen in the production process. So make sure that all the factors are used efficiently to make sure that we maximize our output. And the aspects that you need to focus on here include dispatching. So dispatching involves converting plans into action. So we take whatever plans have been put in place in the planning process and now we actually put them into action. It provides instructions for a number of things, including how we're going to move materials and machinery to the necessary locations and to the necessary people. It includes starting the process of production. It includes checking the time and costs involved in the production process. It includes checking the flow of work in terms of routing. And then finally, it also supervises the production process to ensure quality is maintained through the production process. The next aspect we have to look at is following up. And this should make sense to you because we need to follow up with the progress of the work. Are we actually managing to keep up with what we've planned? And if we are not managing to keep up with what we planned, what are we doing about it? How are we going to put those, or what measures are we going to put in place to make sure that we are following the plans? And if not, why and what are we going to do to sort it out? Okay, the next aspect we're going to consider is inspection with regards to, and this involves quality as well. So in fact, inspection is checking the quality of the final products and making sure that legally these products are also meeting the requirements of their industry standards. So each industry will have its own standard when it comes to quality, and the inspection process will ensure that this is met. And then finally, corrective measures quite simply means we find out any process in our production process or anything that's going wrong in the production process. We find out what it is and we put corrective action in place to try and fix it so we can get back on track to follow what we have planned. Okay, then I'm quickly going to go through the activities that you had to complete in your workbook. So firstly was reasons why businesses must manage safety in the workplace. The first statement, the missing words. So again, this is filling in the missing words. Your first statement's answer was productive. Second one was injuries. Third one was workplace. The fourth one was happier. And the fifth one was decrease. Okay, so I'm just going through that quickly so that you have the answers with you. Right, I'm going to flip through the slides of safety and the health, and the Occupational Health and Safety Act, just so that you can see what information is required with that, because we have to end our session very shortly. So these are the requirements for a safe environment. So again, here, make sure you know at least 3 or 4 of these bullet points. They are easy to understand. So learn 3 or 4 of these bullet points in case they ask this in an essay question. But if it's in a section B, they probably will only ask for 3 points for about 6 marks or so. It won't be more than 6 marks in that case. And it's going to be a suggest or recommend type question. So it will be 2 marks at the end of the statement. Okay. And then just precautionary measures that the business can put in place when handling machinery is that they can train employees to use the machinery properly. So that first image there is about training employees to use the machinery properly, making sure the operations manuals are in place so that people can look at them whenever they need to, not allowing people to use the machinery when they're on medication that's going to impede their ability to use the machinery, having the appropriate safety equipment and hard hats and uniforms, etc. that's needed. And then obviously, and the last one there is servicing your machines regularly to make sure that no injuries happen in the workplace. Okay, and the last thing we're going to look at is the Occupational Health and Safety Act, where this describes or clarifies the roles and duties of the health and safety representative to keep people safe in the workplace. So there's just all the measures that need to be put in place. And the common question here is why businesses need to comply with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And again, this will be a recommend question. So again, take a look at these. They're quite easy to remember and understand. So the common question is recommend ways that business can comply with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And these are good examples to use for that. And will be 2 marks allocated at the end of the statement. Okay, so grade 11s, that is all the time we have for today. I hope that I'm sure we've given you a lot of information. and I'm sure that you'll use this information to your advantage. Thank you to Mr. Edwards for his valuable input.
Thank you very much, Mr. de Klerk. It was lovely to be here, and all the very best to the grade 11s.
Yeah, and good luck for the rest of the year. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.